As you might have noticed, I didn't post an episode of this show last week because I was busy creating a bunch of other content for this channel. But this week I'm back, and I can't wait to share with you the books that I found for this episode of My Wednesday Comics. So this first book is a rollover from last week. I didn't get to review this one, Cobra Commander number 1, which is also part of the Energon universe that has been building. Next book is Ghost Machine number 1. I've been looking forward to this one because it's not only the name of a book with a bunch of cool stories, it's pretty thick, but it's also the name of a new company of a bunch of creators that banded together to start something new. And finally, with all the talk of Transformers and G.I.JOE in comics right now, it actually reminded me of a book I already had called Transformers vs. G.I.JOE, the Quintessential collection. This came out in 2017, and it has a totally different flavor than the Energon universe books, but I thought it would be cool to look at it and compare it to the new stuff. So 3 books, but there's a lot to get through in there, so let's get to it. Okay, first book is Cobra Commander number 1 by Joshua Williamson and Andrea Milana. So we've already kind of gotten a taste of Cobra Commander, this series, in the Duke book number 1. They gave actually these first 5 pages, they showed them in that book. So we already got a preview of what this series could be. The thing I really admire about what they're trying to do, and I don't know if this is intentional, but I'm assuming it is, but I feel like the artists, Daniel Warren Johnson, Tom Riley, and now Andrea Milana, all kind of fit in a similar world with their art style, which is great to help like unify those worlds together. As you recall from the preview before, Cobra Commander walks into this bar. We don't know, he's not officially declared as Cobra Commander. And at the end, this is how the preview ended. It left off on blood footprints in the snow, which I'm assuming are Cobra Commander's treads on his boots. And whether or not they intend, I mean, obviously it's the Cobra insignia, but I wonder if it's like they intended it to have the insignia on the bottom, or is it just the tread and we're picturing it as the Cobra insignia. Then it takes us to this underworld environment, and this is where the sci-fi aspect of G.I.JOE comes in that I really enjoy. The whole Cobra La, which I just read on the internet today, was named after Shangri-La, that fictional place. And it was just supposed to be a placeholder name, apparently, but they liked it so much they kept it. So they're just kind of setting up what a cutthroat dude he is. This is a cool page where it's broken up into 9 panels, breaking up the moment of him being injected with the serpent venom. And here he is in bed, wrapped up, the crazy snake mutant eye growing out of his head. I have to admit, I wasn't sure who these characters were, so I don't know who Pythona is, but anyway, cool character. And this is Globulus, this kind of cool emperor character that I know is from the previous lore. I'm assuming all these characters are. I will talk a little bit about Andrea Milana's art. It's really gestural and has a slightly animated feel to it, which is nice, but not like cel shaded. I love the painterly quality of it. This is a great reveal page right here. This is what we've been waiting for. Boom. There is Megatron. He's kind of connected to all this machinery. One thing that they're doing really well in all of the Energon universe books, I'm pretty sure like a red line, bold mandate of the art style and the writing is make sure the characters look like the toys. Because this definitely looks like if you just took my Megatron toy and scaled it up 1,000%, that's what he would look like. So then they go into the history a little bit about ancient battle between the Autobots and the Decepticons. He's got Megatron plugged in here, tapping into him as a resource. But they show at the end here that Megatron isn't just isn't asleep the whole time, which is a great setup. I'm not sure how I feel about Cobra Commander in this outfit. It's cool, the fedora and all that. It looks a little silly, but that is G.I. Joe, I guess. And then they set up the dreadnoughts at the end here, which I'm so excited about. I think that's the key of them keeping this series faithful to the original, is not changing the designs or not updating designs. They do that a lot in modern day books when they revamp stuff, or even movies. They just update the design to try and make it a little bit more modern, a little bit more contemporary. Sometimes that doesn't work so well, and in this case, for them to hold so tightly to the original designs really builds on that nostalgia, but then just placing them in more elevated, dire circumstances, that's what makes it more modern. So there's Cobra Commander #1. Great job. Another book I will continue to pick up in the Energon Universe series. Second book here is Ghost Machine. So I had heard about this in just comic news sites and stuff, that this was happening. There's a lot of creators that affiliated with this, and I'll go through them as I flip through the book. Basically, this is kind of a anthology, I'd say, an introductory anthology to share the universe or introduce the universe to readers. Here's a picture of all the creators here and a list of them here. And to note, when I first heard about Ghost Machine, it was actually through, Junkyard Joe, that I had picked up just on random based on the artwork and the black and white copy, if you guys don't remember that episode that I reviewed it. And they had talked about it was under the imprint of Ghost Machine. Then I started reading more and more that Ghost Machine was actually a conglomerate of artists and writers who are starting something new under the Image publishing banner. It's cool because they set up the table of contents here, and they kind of give the reader the different sections and who it is that is the creator and artist of, or the writer and artist of each series. This first beginning part is the unnamed, where Junkyard Joe fits in. There is actually a book that already exists out there called Geiger, which I have not picked up, but it's part of this unnamed universe. And then the big creator, the big writer under the unnamed is Geoff Johns. And Geoff Johns has done a lot of huge titles in DC, specifically did a lot of Green Lantern work, Blackest Night, and all that kind of stuff. Here's Geiger. Based on the name and his design, you can tell he's a radioactive character. From what I've read, he has absorbed all this radioactive energy, and he has these 2 rods that he puts in his back right here to kind of control that. It's a tragic story of his family dying. He couldn't save them. So this next section is for a character named Redcoat, who, from what I gather, he's immortal, and he starts off during like the Revolutionary War, the American Revolutionary War. And there's other people that are immortal that he interacts with. Here they talk about Benedict Arnold, talk about his interaction with Albert Einstein, Davy Crockett, all these kind of historical figures. I don't think they're all immortal, but he has interactions with them. Kind of feels like Highlander a little bit, but it's cool. I like the way that Geoff Johns is writing his character, and I've seen this in immortal characters before, where once they discover that they're immortal, they kind of have this hedonistic, almost acceptance of their fate, and they're a little cavalier. They don't really care that much, and that's kind of how he's writing this character. And it's funny. I can see him being a favorite just by the way he's being written. Each one of these little sections to introduce, there's about like 4 to 6 pages of the story, and then Ghost Machine does this really cool thing. They do a timeline where they talk about where each one of their characters and each one of these stories kind of fit in this overall timeline of the unnamed. There's like the unnamed, and they're fighting, quote unquote, the unknown war. Very cool. Then they have these stat pages for Geiger and Junkyard Joe, and Redcoat, and another character named the Northerner, and then this character, the President, Sarah Nash. And it's great. It's nice that they give the readers this. These are all like introductory stuff, and it just gives you a foundation to start thinking about these characters. And then obviously they're going to come out with individual books that support each one of these characters. So this next book, Rook Exodus, I really love the design of this character's mask. I didn't know anything about it, and they're on the cover too, but this is a different character. If I had to explain it just based off what it's read, it's kind of like these characters have masks that are all based on the kind of animals that they connect with and control. They haven't really described how they control them or not. They're kind of like farmers or agriculturalists, but now thrown into this war setting. It can get kind of cheesy when you go this route because it's often affiliated with like kids shows and toys that we grew up with. I remember J. Scott Campbell, who I reviewed one of his books in an unboxing video. He only did a few issues of a book called Wildsiders, and that was kind of like people who had animal powers, or more like dinosaur powers, that were affiliated with their costumes. But the costumes and the designs of these guys, so this is Geoff Johns and Jason Fabok. The designs are great, really cool. This definitely has a dark tone to it. Dare I say post-apocalyptic Power Rangers. So here, choose your animal, and then you can see from their helmet designs that, you can infer the different kind of animals that they control or their territory. Look at the spider guy, it's pretty awesome. I wouldn't be sure if I would be interested in it just based on the pitch, but just looking at the art and the few pages that they shared here, I really liked it, so I for sure will pick up the book when it comes out. Then this next session is called Family Odysseys. And this is, they explain it here, this is the family universe of Ghost Machine. Again, I really like how they are giving you clear explanations of what they're trying to do with this comic company. So these are like family-friendly stories, I'm sure, probably age a little younger. And the creator of this first one it's called The Rockefellers, and the writer is Peter J. Tomasi, and Francis Manapul is the artist. I really like Francis Manapul's work. The last book that I saw by him was, let me go get it. This is issue 3, but it's called Clear. It's by Scott Snyder and Francis Manapul. And if I'm not mistaken, they did this as an online comic and then compiled it, or webcomic, and compiled it as a printed book later. Francis Manapul also has a great YouTube channel, which I will put in the links, of just his experience as a comic book creator, an independent artist, and his day-to-day, not only like drawing videos, but just like the business of it and how he survives and what he does on a day-to-day basis. And they're filmed really, really well, super high professional feeling. So I recommend checking that out and just getting a snapshot of his career. Ironically, since he announced that he was part of this team, those videos, he's produced less videos, so I'm sure he's pretty busy on what he's working on. So this is The Rockefellers. It's just about a family that has, they kind of are like a special family. They don't really reveal too much about it, but I think it's like time travel is involved. They're really cool, like Junkyard Joe tie-in here, like in the movie they're watching. Then the next book that they share is called Hornsby and Halo, also by Peter J. Tomasi, and the artist is Peter, I'm going to butcher his last name, Snejbjerg? I apologize ahead of time. They set up pretty quickly this rivalry between these two characters. This is Hornsby, this is Halo, and from their names you can kind of infer where the story is going. Nice little shadow reveal here. They don't go super in-depth again into the story. They just give you a taste and a flavor of it, but they do set it up if you feel, or you start understanding that it's this age-old battle between these two. It's like devil and angel, Hornsby and Halo. Then they do again the explanations here. Great job of doing that, just to give us more information, more backstory. I even love the like height and weight. Reminds me of those Marvel Universe, DC Who's Who books. And then here's Hornsby and Halo. So here, obviously revealing the devil and the angel side to it. Cat dog, pretty cute. And finally, the third section or genre I'd say that Ghost Machine is tackling is Hyde Street. And this is by Geoff Johns, and the artist is Ivan Reis. They do this cool little ad of the weird things that were in comics when we were growing up, the weird advertisements for comics like X-ray glasses and piranha people. This is like the fish people that we would see, but they have this like kind of horror vibe to it. I really love it. Maybe I should cut this out and turn it in and see what comes back. The artwork in this one is really nice. Very good. Ivan Reis is a great artist. And then here's another tie-in, Rockefellers. That's a fun thing. I know Image has done that, where they do crossovers between all the creators, different creator-owned books. That's just a nice way of building out their universe, showing the audience that they're all connected, giving like the nice little Easter egg nods to each other. So here comes the like horror vibe. So Hyde Street definitely has that horror genre vibe to it. And here's the tie-in to those X-ray glasses, which is awesome from the ad here. Pretty cool. Well thought out book, well thought out intro book. And then there's one more section or book that they're talking about called Devour. And I actually didn't know where that began or end. I see the Devour powder here in the story, but I wasn't sure where it was, because it looks like this is Ivan Reis also here. So that one I wasn't totally clear on where that began or where that was in this book. Devour is by the artist Ivan Reis as also. And then the writer is Maytal Zchut. Again, another difficult. I think for all the horror genre, they put the hardest names. So I think this might have to do with Devour, but it wasn't clear because it had the same artist kind of blended in, and maybe that was intentional. Here's the calendar for Ghost Machine coming out. And I think, for them to be successful, they just got to release on time and regularly, but they've got a lot of good, cool things going on here. They got standard superheroes, kind of this adventure, fantasy. This is more sci-fi, and then the horror. Oh, and also the family. So yeah, they got their bases covered. Seems like they're doing a huge launch in April. Ghost Machine. Wow, they even have some merch. Ghost Machine merch. Nice start off to their book. And then finally, Transformers vs. G.I. Joe, the Quintessential Collection. This is by Tom Scioli and John Barber. I thought of this one just because of all the Transformers and G.I. Joe talk, and I was like, oh, they have had many crossovers, and this one stuck with me a lot. In particular, Tom Scioli is the artist and writer, and John Barber is the co-writer. And Tom Scioli worked on a book. The main book that I knew that he worked on before this was called Godland, and I believe he worked on that with the writer Joe Casey. But as you can see from his artwork from the get-go, he has a huge Jack Kirby influence. He also has his own YouTube channel. He sometimes guest stars on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, which is one of the channels I watch a lot on YouTube. And he's just a deep comic fan through and through. So combining Jack Kirby and Transformers and G.I. Joe was a really interesting combination for me. And when I saw the first issue of this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait until this is all compiled, because this is a collection that I really want to have. And I think there's 13 issues of this. The interesting thing to compare this with what's going on right now with the Energon universe is he takes it very seriously in the fact that he's a fan of these properties, just like we were as kids. He treats the characters and the robots, he keeps them faithful to their original designs and kind of who they are. So those are all kind of the same checkboxes that they're doing now in Energon Universe. The main difference, though, just speaking on concept first, the main difference is that I found is Tom Scioli definitely pushes more in the tongue-in-cheek kind of weirdness of what these concepts are, and he embraces those, and he has no problem making fun of them. Like here, you know, this was a character that could transform into a microscope, and he like talks about cell structure and everything in there, and he looks through the microscope to see these things about the G.I. Joe team coming. So it's really fun stuff like that, but at the same time respecting it. So you really do feel like when you read this, it's like you're playing with your toys here and just coming up with crazy stories that are possible in these worlds. The current Energon universe there definitely has some tongue-in-cheek, and they're playing around. It's like you're playing with your toys, but it's a little bit, well, a lot more serious. And as I had mentioned earlier in some other reviews, the stakes are definitely higher. I think also the art style, because it has that Kirby flavor to it, lends to that storytelling that Kirby was known for. Really bold and explosive and not subtle at all kind of storytelling. I love this though. He blurs out, does this like kind of 8-bit digitizing and blurs out that character's face as he gets his head blown off. While if that happened in the current series, you know, you'd kind of really see the violence in that. The other thing that's really cool with Tom Scioli's art style is he does this technique. I saw some behind the scenes that he had done before where he like draws it on paper and he was coloring it with like colored pencils. It was really like tactile and really kind of old school approach to it. And he did that on purpose. And you can even see it like with the paper here. He gives it this like weathered comic book paper look too. But a fun series, just lots of stuff going on, lots of stories, really melodramatic. This feels like a big like Kirby god character, how he would draw it. It's really fun, but very different from the current series. So it's neat to see how one artist's approach, trying to stay true and honest to the properties, can end up with very, very different results, both equally as successful and exciting. It's a great collection to have, and a good one if you love Transformers and G.I. Joe. So this week I knew the 3 books that I was going to talk about: Cobra Commander, Ghost Machine, and then it led to thinking about the Transformers versus G.I. Joe collection. But when I went to the store, they were having a 50% off starter pack sale, and I ended up getting a bunch of really great collections that I thought, oh geez, should I go over these in Wednesday Comics? But it would have tripled the length of this show, which is probably already long to begin with. But it just led me to think of like, oh, I know, I could save those issues and those packs for my unboxing show that I tried to do for things that have come in the mail for me. And it actually just made me think about these last couple of weeks, which have been super fun. Just creating new content and how one bit of content leads to another idea for another content. It's just being driven by what excites me around the world of comics. So just to recap, for those of you who might not have seen some of the content that's been coming out, I did a show called Comics Yeah, Comics Nah, where I thought I would try and introduce a comic book to a friend of mine and see if I could convince them, just by showing them the comic and what I loved about it, to want to read it. So I thought that went really well, and we got a great response from the chat and from people that watched. So I definitely want to do more of those in the future. Then I did another show called Super Nostalgia with a couple of my friends, my middle school friends who I haven't talked to in decades, who were really integral in developing my love for comic books. We had a great time. It was a great stream, one of my favorite streams. And we had, again, great engagement with the chat and people who are watching. So now I'm talking about bringing those guys back to do another round. I actually put out a poll in the community tab on YouTube and on X about what books we should do. So check those out and put in your vote, because I'd love to know what you guys think. The vote is between the Long Shot Limited Series by Arthur Adams and Ann Nesenti, or the Inferno crossover, which those were two series that we grew up with. And then I've been doing a bunch of shorts on YouTube Shorts, just doing quick 15-second reviews of books that I may have already done an in-depth review here on My Wednesday Comics, but I still thought that they're worth sharing. They don't take that long to create, but I've been getting great engagement there. Oh, and I've also been doing the secret draw streams at all hours of the day, where I'm actually trying to practice drawing more in front of the YouTube audience. So the first couple I did were for the Spawnuary contest. I was drawing Spawn. And then the latest one I did just sketching out a version of Cobra Commander, because I had just read that book. Anyway, all this kind of content has just, again, been really fun to think of and try and execute. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it. Please share it around. Subscribe if you haven't. If this is the first time you're hearing about my channel, I love it when I see that subscription count go up. And it's just encouraging, and it just fuels me to create more content and just dive deeper into the bottomless pit that is YouTube content creation. Thanks again. Definitely like, subscribe, or as my friend Marty says, smash that like button, hit those notifications, and share and comment. It just is another form of connection with people who watch this channel, and I try and respond to all of them. I appreciate all the connection that I'm having with you guys. I'm really pushing to do more and build this channel up even better. Thank you for making it a really enjoyable ride, and I hope that you continue to come alongside me as we build this out. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.